Hi everyone, welcome. I'm out here in my yard and this is my outdoor worm system, or one of my outdoor worm systems. I have a compost barrel and it's occupied by worms too. Those worms made their way in there by themselves. The worms in here I placed in here, and this was set up as a deliberate worm bag. And in the past I've run my outdoor worm bag or worm system as sort of an overwinter project. More recently I've been a little bit more chicken about doing that and bringing them inside when the weather seems like it's going to turn very chilly. Not sure how I'm going to play it yet this year, but I'm leaning towards doing that again, which is to bring them in and keep them warm and keep them active, really, I guess is the bottom line there. I'm not that keen on the idea of putting them into a state where they're practically dormant and non-productive. I mean, they're here for me to break down my kitchen scraps, and that's what I've got for them today. I've got a pretty wide variety of stuff in this bag here. And I did look at the videos from the past couple feedings of this system, and on both occasions, both of the last two occasions, it seemed like they received such tiny portions that I figured this time I would kind of go to the other end of the spectrum and provide them with a really generous portion. Last time it was just a couple pieces of grapes and a couple little pieces of kitchen scraps. I think prior to that it was a few melons that sort of voluntarily started growing in my garden, so I gave them those. But this time I've got a nice generous supply of kitchen scraps that my mom provided yesterday, which I thought I'd be able to use in today's feeding. And I pretty much took half of what she gave yesterday and put it in that bag over there. There was stuff like apple peels, there was stuff like French fried potatoes, there was peppers, all kinds of yummy stuff that I think the worms are going to enjoy eating. So I'm going to open up a little hole in here carefully to give them their food. The reason I'm saying carefully is because a few feedings ago, perhaps 3 feedings ago, maybe even 4 feedings ago at this point, I don't recall, I decided I was going to do an experimental feeding in here and give them meat, because I had some chicken and I threw a fairly generous portion of chicken in here for them. And on the past few times that we've checked in here, I've definitely smelled it, because I'm used to what things smell like in my worm bins, and it was nothing that I recognized. It was definitely some sort of an odd odor, and I'm assuming that it was what was left of the chicken, the meat that they were given. And it did seem like gradually over time it was being eaten or broken down somehow, whether it was the worms themselves or bacteria, who knows, fungus. The worms are enjoying that that corn cob. This is one of the cantaloupe melons. There was an entire feeding that was made up of this stuff, and I had one left over, which I included in the last feeding. But it seems like this little cantaloupe melon is holding out pretty good, because I can't even crush it. I thought I'd crush it to try to help it along, but you know what? Let's leave it as is. It'll be a novelty to see how it's coming along next time. Hopefully by next time it softens up and gets infiltrated and they start working it down. More and more corn cobs. These corn cobs, I don't even remember when corn cobs were fed in here. It must have been quite a while ago. And they're making progress on it. These are the grapes that they got last time. Interesting that there's so many leftovers remaining in here. I kind of thought that with 15 days between feedings here now, 15 days since the last time we came in here to feed them, I thought that stuff like grapes might have, you know, been consumed by now. It's not too surprising that there's leftovers of the corn cobs. Corn cob leftovers are always persistent in remaining in a worm bin for weeks and weeks, sometimes months on end, before they get consumed. But I wasn't quite sure what to expect from grapes. Now, a lot of this stuff that you're seeing here, all this grassy material, was weeds that I pulled out of my garden. And it does seem like the worms are really enjoying the use of this stuff as their bedding. This stuff too goes back quite a long way when I placed it in here. So let's just set that stuff aside. Now we're starting to get down to where the foods were, and it makes me a little nervous, because this is where usually I start to just disturb some of the material, and then all of a sudden I catch a whiff of what's left of the meat that's still in here. And I have a sense that we might encounter the same thing again today. And it wasn't really a discernible chunk of meat per se. I think what I found when I was pretty sure that I had found it was just a slimy wad of stuff. And it would be kind of nice if there was no remaining smell of it today. The one thing I kind of felt like we were never seeing in this system was like a real mob scene of worms. It always seemed like we'd come into these feeding areas from the previous feedings and find very few worms, and I thought that had something to do with possibly the portions that they were getting being a little bit small. Part of the reason I wanted to go a little bit bigger on the portion today, so that perhaps the next time we come back in here we would see a good number of worms hanging out. But it does seem like we've encountered a pretty nice little stash of worms hanging out down here in the middle. They're really out here in force, and they're doing a nice job breaking down the stuff that goes in here. Yeah, they're all over the place. I guess my only concern is that what they're getting today is frozen, and I'd hate to drop frozen stuff right on top of some unsuspecting wormies. I didn't really expect to find so many, but it is kind of a nice, pleasant deviation from what I thought I would encounter down in here. Lots and lots of castings in here too. Pretty damp, the material in here. Since it's a bag, you would think that it would ventilate and dry and lose a lot of its moisture through the fabric, but it does seem like it's doing a very good job holding on to its moisture. I mean, the bag is within a plastic tub, so only so much of the outer surface of it is exposed to the air and might be capable of letting the moisture out. So it does seem like we made it to the very bottom of the container here. Usually I don't dig that far. I sort of start to sense that I'm nearing it, and then I'll stop and not really excavate to the very, very bottom. But I figured, what the heck, let's go for it today. And I thought maybe we would see if I could round up a couple handfuls of leaves to throw in here as bedding. I've collected most of the leaves in my yard, and I've bagged them all up. Well, not all of them, because I've got a pile of them over next to me. So I'm gonna go grab a handful of that stuff, and we're gonna put that in here as the bedding, and then we could pile in the cold frozen stuff right on top of it without worrying about it hitting any unsuspecting wormies. So let me go grab some of that now. All right, tried to see how much I can grab with one handful, and it does seem like a pretty nice amount. I just figured if there's sticks in here, then I would pull them out. It was just whatever I was able to rake together, and since I'm underneath the tree here above me, I do sometimes collect up some little sticks and stuff, which would probably break down over time, but I figured let's exclude them if we could. Now we can start bringing back some of these leftovers. Now granted, some of these leftovers do have worms on them, so they might be a little bit jarred by the cold stuff getting piled in on top of them. So maybe we can even save them that experience by maybe taking some of this stuff that's around the edges and trying to help shield them from it. And now I think we can go for it. Now we could drop in today's food. Now we'll get a good sense of what kind of stuff my mom provided here. Let's dump it in. This has got to be at least 3 or 4 times what they've received in past feedings. Way more. Way more. Look at all this stuff. Looks like these are some kind of extra large size French fried potatoes that never got eaten. And here we have some potato peel, apple peels, all the red stuff. And I thought there might have been some other things in here. Here we go. I knew there was. Here's some nice Hungarian peppers that never got eaten. Oh, what a shame. I remember going over to the place where these are purchased and getting them for her quite a while ago. I'm pretty sure that those are the ones that I bought her, because I bought her a whole bunch. I wouldn't be surprised if some of them didn't get eaten. So, to me that looks like a pretty nice, generous feeding, and I've even got more leafy material here out on the side that we can cover up with a bit. This was the stuff that was kind of laying around on the ground before during the last feeding that we threw on top of everything as a top covering. So I think as another top covering today, perhaps we can do the same. I can go grab another handful of leafy stuff to throw on top as a top covering for these little guys. So why don't I go grab another handful, and then we'll be pretty much finished. Alright. In a way, I wouldn't mind if the material in this system was a little bit drier, because it does seem a bit muddy, but I'm not going to worry about it. I know that the worms enjoy it that way. It's just that if I was going to try to harvest this stuff at some point soon, then it would make it a little bit easier to handle if it was drier. But I don't think I'm anywhere near that yet. I think the system is somewhere in the neighborhood of like 23 and 24 weeks old, somewhere between there. And I believe there have been 17 feedings, making this the 18th feeding overall. So it's among my older systems. So I don't know, we'll have to see. I don't know if I want to put it away for the winter into its little hidey hole where I protect it from the cold. With so much stuff in here, I wonder if harvesting it might make sense, or maybe I could use the winter time as a sort of a foraging period and maybe go really big on the next couple feedings and give them lots of bedding as well, and then just let it sit for foraging for an extended period of time. And that might be a good way for it to spend its winter, but I don't know, we'll play it by ear. Alright everyone, that's it for today's check-in with my outdoor worm bag. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's really appreciated as well. Alright everyone, have a great day. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.